just Pickle Antonio's.
Yeah. Yeah. I do have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. We're adjourned from our special meeting. Now to go ahead, call to order. Welcome, everybody. It's wonderful to see everybody here. Nice filled room. Welcome to our city council meeting, our normal city council meeting for Monday, July 18th. The first item, we have the invocation of the pledge led by Ms. Powers.
I wanted to first take a moment, if you could bear with me just a moment, please. If you could please take a moment of silence to recognize Marty White, who was a city employee that passed recently. All right. As we gather, we are reminded that despite our differences, we are linked by our common humanity. May we work together to move our community forward in a spirit of mutual respect and common decency, and in doing so, we showcase what is best about Gahanna, Ohio, and the United States of America. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, item B, additions or corrections to our agenda. I do have two. Under hearing of visitors, after we have the introduction of Dr. David. Oh, thank you. Roll call, please. Getting ahead of myself.
Angelou,
Here.
Bowers,
Here.
McGregor, Padova,
Here.
Renner,
Here.
Schnetzer, Weaver.
Here.
We have a lot going on, but thank you. All right, so back to additions or corrections to the agenda. I do have two. The mayor has requested to add discussion of the pools under, so we'll do that after Dr. Deagle. I understand too that there are recreation staff that would like to, that are going to speak after the mayor speaks, and that's great. The second thing, I do need to add an executive session for council and council only at the end. It'll be after K, council comment. So we'll have a short executive session to talk about a personnel item. Okay? All right, moving on. Item C, hearing of visitors. Ms. Burl Picolantonio, please. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You can touch the microphone here.
Mayor knows meetings, we've had some incidents with the microphone touch, so that's, I don't think it's on.
Just talk loud.
See what happens when she touches it?
Kevin touches it.
Can you hear me now? Does it sound like it's on?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for giving us just a couple minutes to come tonight. I want to, if I could, just really briefly first introduce my board colleagues. Our board vice president, Mrs. Daphne Mooring, Kara Coates, Sue Horn, and Dion Manley. Thanks for giving us, like I said, just a couple minutes to introduce our incoming new superintendent to you. I don't know what you know or don't know, so I'm just going to give you a real brief information about the search that we went through, and then a little bit of information about Dr. Deagle, and then I will invite her up to say hi to you all. So after an extensive but pretty quick search process that involved invited stakeholder interviews, including at least a couple of you. I think our mayor was there and Councilwoman Bowers was there for a stakeholder interview process. The board voted unanimously on May 9th to hire Dr. Tracy Deagle as our next superintendent. Dr. Deagle is an experienced educational professional with over 22 years of work in public education. Most recently, she was an assistant professor of pre-K through 12 educational leadership at Mercer University in Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. Deagle began her public education career as a classroom teacher in the Van Wert City School District. She has also served as an assistant principal at Hilliard Darby High School, and she has served as both a principal at Davis Middle School and the deputy superintendent in the Dublin City School District. Dr. Deagle received her bachelor's degree from The Ohio State University. She received her Master of Public Administration from Indiana University and her doctorate in educational leadership from University of Dayton. And in addition to her positions in pre-K through 12 public education, she has held several faculty positions in higher education. We are very excited that she and her family were able to buy and move into a house in the school district very quickly, and very excited that she was able to do that in this housing market. And they have been spending the summer getting to know our community. Dr. Deagle began work with the district on a part-time basis on May 17th, which was, like I said, we just voted to hire her on May 9th, so we were incredibly lucky that she was able to start on a part-time basis in the middle of May so that she could get to know staff and get to know the buildings. Actually, she was able to visit every single school building before the last day of school and then she will assume full-time duties on August 1st. We are planning a reception for the community to meet her. That'll be on August 4th. I think the time is from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m., but that, once those details are finalized, I'll make sure that you all are aware, and all of you, I guess, too. We want to make sure that it's a time for anyone in the community to come and meet Dr. Deagle. So I'm going to invite Dr. Deagle up here with me to come say hi.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, members of City Council and Mayor, for having me here this evening. It is such an honor to be the newest member of the City of Gahanna. My husband, my son, and I are just so happy to be here. We were very fortunate to find a home, and we are really getting to know our wonderful community. I have also taken some time not only to spend with your wonderful mayor, but also with your police chief, who has already proven, both have already proven to be great partners of mine and of our schools. So thank you for sharing them with us, for sure. I look forward to working with you in the future to continue to bring outstanding opportunities for our children. Gahanna has always had an exceptional reputation for the programming that they have, that we have for our children, and I am going to meet that and even take it further and ensure that our families and our children have the very best as they move forward, and hopefully as they stay in Gahanna to share their talents with us. Please reach out to me. I would love to talk with you and hear what your vision is for our school district and how we may partner with you going forward so that Gahanna can continue to be one of the best hometowns in the state of Ohio. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And for everybody at the, for our school board, thank you so much. Oh, you got another one?
I come back. I'm so sorry. I failed to introduce to you our assistant superintendent, who you may already know because she is a Gahanna grad. This is Mrs. Jill Elliott, who is a phenomenal first lieutenant of mine in the school district. So Jill, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you again for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you for having the time to come before us. And Burl, Daphne, and the rest of the school board, thank you very, very much for coming and spending your evening and at least introducing. That's wonderful. Thank you. All right, the next item on the hearing of visitors is Madam Mayor.
Yes,
Please go ahead.
thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you for the accommodation and allowing me to add this discussion item to the agenda. As most of you know, if not all of you, new pool rules were implemented on Friday and communicated, actually they went into effect on Saturday. They were communicated to the community on Friday. I have had some discussions with a few of you about those rules since then. I know that you've had a lot of reach outs from residents. It certainly has been active conversation on social media, both very positive and both negative as well. And I understand both. It is important for everyone to understand that the implementation of the rule change and how we are managing and operating the pools on a daily basis was in response to multiple incidents that have been occurring at the pool. They've been increasing in frequency and escalating in severity. As of last Friday, when the rules the new rules were shared, at that point we had 7 police calls in the previous 14 days. We've had nearly 40 incident reports that have been completed and filed at the pools since the pool season opened. That is an absurd amount for what we typically have. We have 3 weeks left in the pool season, and it very much would have been an easy decision to say, you know what, we'll just try to get through this season and we'll think about it next year, but that was not an option for us. Ultimately, the safety of our guests, the safety of our residents who are coming to use the pool, and the safety of our staff has to be the top priority. Public safety is always and always will be the top priority for us in everything that we do. And again, given the escalation that we were seeing in incidents and in severity of incidents, the rules were implemented. The rules that were put into place were not, again, not a light decision. The decision was not made lightly. There was much evaluation that went on. We looked at pretty much every municipality around Central Ohio and the rules that they currently have in place. And I will share, we are one of the last municipalities to implement these types of rules. So we were one of the last ones to the table. But we examined every possible option that we could come up with in terms of alternatives and the types of rules that could be implemented. I used the analogy, it was like a prism held up, looked at multiple angles. I challenged the staff for a good bit on Friday with what about this and what about that, and what if we did it this way, what if we did it that way. The rules that were ultimately decided upon and put into place were those that we felt were in the best interest of maintaining public safety and being the least impactful to the people who use our pool. You know, our Parks and Rec staff, I think it's important to note that they, our recreation team, the minute the pool season ends in the fall, they are starting to plan next year. They look forward to the day that the pool's open in Memorial Day weekend every year because they want to see the kids and the families come in and use the pools. This was not an easy decision for them. In fact, it's more of a dagger in the heart that they were put into this position. I will share the behaviors. You may have seen stories on the news around unruly juveniles. Knott's Berry Farm, I saw a Gahanna resident shared it on a Gahanna social media page over the weekend. The Knott's Berry Farm amusement park over the weekend was forced to close 3 hours early because of unruly behavior by juveniles and fights. And we can speak to other community events that happened here in Gahanna this past weekend that caused similar issues. Carnival rides from the Blues and Jazz Festival back in 2019 had the same situation. That's why carnival rides disappeared from that event as well. But it's not only bad behavior by juveniles. It's quite frankly, it's sometimes bad behavior by adults. And I'm going to invite Director Farrell to step up in a minute and just talk to you around some of the examples and challenges that her staff has been having. But there's one particular story that outraged me. You know, we have the kids who work at our pools are 15, 16, 17 years old. We have adults 18 and above who supervise them, who are there on site. But I remember when I was a kid, working at the pool was a rite of passage. It was something everybody did. It was a badge of honor. You worked at the pools for the summer, whether it was lifeguard, concession, what have you. It's been that way for decades, but not this year. I was told a story by Director Farrell. We had an incident within the last 2 weeks at the pool where we had a 15-year-old lifeguard, a young girl, wanting to get her first job, working with the city, trying to enforce a safety rule regarding the diving board, and you know, directing an adult, please don't do that. It's against the rules. And in response, and I apologize in advance for the language, the adult yelled at the lifeguard, the 15-year-old lifeguard, called her a bitch, and then threatened to grab her by her hair and drag her across the pool. Now, that is not the type of work environment I would expect anybody to be in, much less a City of Gahanna employee. And I will not tolerate that as mayor. Public safety is my ultimate responsibility. Buck stops here. I have a little plaque in my office that says that. The safety of this staff is of primary importance, and the safety of the people who come to the pool with their kids. I've had complaints from families who don't want to come to the pool anymore because of the behaviors that they've encountered there. And I know there was a lot of questions on Facebook around what's been happening. There's one example of what's been happening. But Director Farrell, if you would like to step up maybe and talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council, for having the opportunity for us to explain to you the situation. This was not a knee-jerk reaction to a singular incident. This is something that's been happening over multiple weeks. It is not fair to our staff. It is not fair to the individuals who are coming to use the pools as they're intended. So it is something that we could not wait. I refuse to wait for something worse to happen. It is not an appropriate way for our staff to be treated. And honestly, I think the best way to explain those situations are from our staff directly. And I'll actually introduce and invite our aquatic supervisor to come, and actually he'll introduce some of his team as well to give you some of the specific instances that they have been unfortunately dealing with for this summer. So Chris Simmons.
Hello, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you guys today. Stephanie and the mayor already said it, but this pool rules were not in response to one single incident. Rather, they were the result of many incidents throughout the summer. Working in aquatics, I've been in aquatics for almost 10 years now. I worked at the Delaware City Pool. I've worked for the YMCA for several years. I have never seen the behavioral incidents that we have seen this summer at any of those other facilities. The mayor mentioned the number of police calls that have happened this summer already. Never have I seen this type of behavior and this type of response needed. I've been at the pools for one particular instance that I could speak to. We were dealing with some patrons that were disrespecting lifeguards. The manager asked them to leave. They refused to leave. They called me over for support. I told them, you need to go. They told me in some colorful language that they were not going to leave. As we were dealing with this, there was a large group of teenagers around the same area, all get together and run out in the parking lot to fight. They all then rushed back in as my pool manager was trying to physically keep them out. And at that point, I just said, we're gonna call the police. This is too much. My staff is not able to handle that. I don't want them to handle that. That's not what they're here to do. They're here to enforce the rules. They're here to make sure people have a fun and a safe time at the pool. And just the behavior that we've seen is just unacceptable. And that is why we've decided to make these rules now. And this was not something that we felt could wait until the end of the season. Definitely in the off season, we will take a look at things and make those changes as needed. But for now, safety is always number one. So that is why we decided to do it now. I'm going to invite Noelle Dennison, who is a aquatics coordinator, to come up and share some other stories, further explanation of why we decided to take this change.
Hello, I'm Noelle Dennison. I'm an aquatics coordinator for the city of Gahanna. I'm 21 years old and have worked for the pools for 6 years. I have 4 years of experience in leadership positions, 3 of which being pool manager and this year as coordinator. I've been attending the pool since I was 6 months old. I spoke at the city council meeting in 2019 to keep these pools open, and I'm going to school with hopes and plans of pursuing a future career with these pools. However, in the 5 years prior to this one, I have never witnessed the levels of blatant disrespect, terrible behavior, and unacceptable treatment of pool staff as I have this year. The incidences that have led to these operational changes occur almost daily, but I would like to share 2 out of many I could choose from specific incidences that I experienced firsthand. On June 19th, I was working as a lifeguard in order to help out. I was emptying trash cans when I noticed at the guest service desk there were 2 patrons yelling loud enough for me to hear on the opposite side of our pool at our pool manager and guest service workers. Our shifts coordinator was at Hunter's Ridge, so I decided to walk over and see what the problem was. The man was screaming in our pool manager's face, a grown man in the face of one of our 18-year-old pool managers. I slid past and into the front office. I asked him calmly, "What is the problem, sir?" The yelling was then redirected to my face. He was so close that I could feel the particles of spit flying from his mouth and landing on my cheeks. A grown man. I felt scared. I felt unsafe. I am an adult, but even I was terrified and unable to calm down the situation. You may be wondering what caused this man and his wife to be so angry. It was one of our 15-year-old guards enforcing rules as it is her job to do so to 3 boys who were roughhousing, cussing, and had already been spoken to by 6 other guards that day, one of those guards being myself. The adults at the front desk did not know these boys. They were mad because we had rules, the same rules posted at the entrance and that are agreed to when our guests signed the liability waiver, the same waiver that we later found out these 2 adults fabricated all the information on so that we could not properly track who they were and that they were a threat to our staff's safety. Between this incident and the next, I want to reiterate that these are not one-off occurrences. I am simply choosing to share 2 experiences because we would be here for hours if I shared all of them, and that would still only be the ones I encountered firsthand. On July 12th, I was once again lifeguarding. I was posted in the back pool in the chair next to the slide. In the area at the bottom of the slide, there was a lesson of 4 preschool-aged children and another at the opposite side of the 3 feet. A group of teenage boys came back, and within just moments of them reaching their chairs, I could hear them shouting cuss words at each other. Every other word was an F-bomb. I will not be saying these words directly, but I will not fully leave them out. "Watch your language, please," I said, after whistling to get their attention. A group of teenage boys looked at me. The group of teenage boys looked at me. 6 of them. One smacked their lips. Another yelled to me from across the pool, "I don't have to watch my effing language." It is important to remind you that on just the other side of me from these boys, there were preschoolers whose parents paid for them to get taught how to swim. "Yes, you do. Don't let me hear it again," I said, remaining calm but being sure to be loud enough and stern enough that they knew it was unacceptable behavior. And that was all it took. They began yelling at me from across the pool. "What the F are you going to do about it, you B? You stupid B, you can't tell us what to effing do." It continued. I walkie-talkied asking for a manager. I yelled over the boys cursing, "The manager is on her way back to tell you boys to leave, so start packing up your things." To which they responded, "I don't give an F. We didn't even pay to get in. We jumped the fence, you dumb B." And as we waited, they continued yelling, "I'm going to find out where you live and F you up," along with other threats to myself and my family. I noticed my coordinator on shift, Olivia Zeltman, was over by swim practice. I yelled to her, "Olivia, I need you over here immediately," and she came. The boys then proceeded to yell at her, cuss words strewn throughout every sentence, threats to her and her family, but she was not safely sitting up and away from them in a guard chair. She was face to face with a group of teenage boys, half of which towered over her, shoving middle fingers just inches from her face, bending down so that their threats were being made eye to eye. She told me that she was ready at any moment for one of them to hit her. The boys refused to leave when the manager and coordinator told them to. Staying at their chairs, screaming cuss words for all of the young children in the back pool to be forced to listen to. We called the police, and even then, the boys fought back, cussing at the officers, refusing to pack up their belongings. Once they were finally gone, I began to cry. I sat in the guard chair after being berated and threatened by this group of boys, crying not because my feelings were hurt, but because I now understood what my guards have had to go through on a daily basis this summer. I'm a certified lifeguard instructor, meaning I certified a large portion of new guards we have this summer. And I run a portion of the extra trainings we have throughout the season, which we call in-services. I was crying because I understood now why I have had guards express to me during in-services and their regular shifts fear of coming to work, as well as fear of doing their job of enforcing rules. I understood now why I was being asked during in-services what protocol is for an active shooter at the pool. I understood now that things are no longer the same as they were when I was a new guard, sitting in the stand at 15 years old, when we could enforce rules and people of all ages would listen. Things are not the same as when I was 15 and a group of teen boys could be sat in timeout and behave for the rest of the day. When I was 15, I was excited to come to work and bond with the kids that caused a little extra trouble, knowing that when they were old enough, a lot of those same kids I put in timeout would be sitting in the guard chair. We would laugh on those kids' first days, asking if they were ready to deal with groups just like their own, and they would be excited because they now understood the rules and why they were important for the safety of our staff and guests. But this year, the lifeguards are scared. They are so scared that one of these situations is going to happen with the wrong person. Scared enough to come to me, sometimes with tears in their eyes, asking what to do if someone has a gun, asking what to do if one of these adults acts on their threats. Things have changed in the way people act, so it was time to change in the way we operate as facilities. Our guards cannot focus on their primary responsibilities of enforcing rules for the safety of patrons when they are being verbally assaulted by those who they've had to address. Our guards' focus is being taken away from the water where at any moment a kid may need them to jump in for help because they have to spend extra time repeating the same rule enforcement over and over and over again. And it doesn't end when an adult comes to speak to them. Getting a manager is no longer a way to find a solution to behavioral situations. Instead, managers and coordinators have become shields for our guards to stop the harassment and disrespect to them and redirect it to us. Changes needed to be made for the safety of our staff. Changes needed to be made for the safety of our patrons. It is not one group of kids that caused these changes to be put in place. It was an overwhelming number of groups of both teens and adults that have led us to feel that this is the only solution. It is sad for the teens that don't cause problems, but this year it seems as though the bad have outweighed the good. Safety comes first, a family-friendly atmosphere comes first, and without these changes, neither of those two things were possible anymore. I was quoted in the Columbus Dispatch after speaking at the City Council meeting in 2019 and saying, "The pools have shown me the meaning of community." I can no longer say with confidence that these pools do the same for people now. These pools are littered with disrespect and divide. I want my community back.
Thank you so much.
And then I would also like to introduce Tess. She is one of our 15-year-old lifeguards.
Thank you for your courage.
Hi, my name is Tess Francis. I am a 15-year-old first-year lifeguard at the Gahanna pools. I've been coming to these pools since I was 2 years old. I have always respected and looked up to the lifeguards. They inspired me. So much that here I am today, a lifeguard for the exact pools I spent countless days at. If 6-year-old Tess could see me now, she would be happy. Happy that she became someone she looked up to. But she would also be confused. Confused as to why, after hearing countless stories from fellow guards I have known for years about how fun and rewarding this job is, I have barely experienced that. Instead, I have experienced getting cussed at and threatened by adults twice my age and harassed by multiple groups of boys. On July 10th, I went into work expecting it to be a normal day. I had specifically asked for extra hours that day, as I truly do enjoy my job for the most part. I was about a little more than halfway into my shift when I rotated my fellow guard in the back pool by the diving boards. When I got there, there was free swim going on, which I am personally not a fan of because it can tend to get a little bit rowdy, and there was multiple kids in the area. So as soon as a kid asked to go off the board, I allowed it. This action, as it always does, caused multiple people to come over and get in line. Sorry. I was busy telling one kid to walk when I looked back and saw a little girl climb up and out of the water after going off the board, who was very clearly not 13 and did not have a green wristband. I tried multiple times to get her attention and it was unsuccessful, so I waited for her to step up to the board again. And when she did, I very calmly and nicely asked her, "Honey, how old are you?" To which her mother shot up from behind her and responded with, "She's 9. I then informed her mom that since she was not 13 or older, she would need to take a swim test and get a green wristband to continue to go off the boards. To which her mother once again shot up and replied, "She's on the swim team, so if somebody from the front wants to bring her a wristband, that is fine, but she does not need to take the test." I then once again informed her that her daughter would indeed need to take the swim test, as she was under the age of 13. The girl's mother then very rudely replied, "We have been here all day, and you are the first person to have a problem with her. So like I said, you can have someone from the front bring her a wristband, but she is not taking the test." When she said this, I didn't really know what to say. I kind of froze and looked to another guard for help, which is when I then saw her signaling that it was rest period. The lady, her husband, and their daughter and their friends stayed back at the board so the adults could go off the boards. This is a very common thing to happen during rest period, as there are no kids in the water and no kids in line for the diving boards, so the adults are allowed to have a little bit of fun. Everything was going fine until about the 4th time I had to ask the male friend of the lady to stop jumping more than once on the board before he went off. I felt as though since there was only 4 of them going off and no kids, I would give him a couple more chances than usual, but it still had no effect. The guard diagonal from me could see that I was getting frustrated after telling him multiple times and reminded me via the walkie that I could ask him to take a break from using the board since he could not follow the rules. I very kindly told him, "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to get off the boards for the remainder of rest period since you cannot follow the rule of only 1 jump on the board." The guy was very understanding, saying things like, "That's no problem, I completely understand, I'm sorry." I thought the situation had been handled until the lady asked him why he had to get off the board. And when he told her why, she directly asked me, "Why does it matter if he jumps more than once? That sounds stupid." I once again responded kindly with, "It's just a safety rule, we don't want anyone to get hurt." Her husband had then offered them to go back to the party that they were a part of in the large shelter of the front pool, as they would probably have cake soon. They seemed to all agree, but her husband and their female friend, however, wanted to go off the boards a couple more times. As they were doing this, the lady asked me, "What is your name?" As soon as she said this, my stomach dropped, as I knew she was either 1, actually going to try and talk to my boss about me, or 2, scare me into thinking that when all I was doing was my job. So I hesitantly replied with Tess. And the look on her face when I said that, and when she replied with, "I'm going to need that later," really made me uncomfortable, but it only got worse. When they were getting ready to head back to the front pool, her daughter asked why they couldn't stay for a couple more minutes so she could go off the board when the rest period was over, which I wouldn't have let her do since she didn't have a green wristband. Her mother looked me dead in the eyes as she said, "Because I really don't feel like dragging somebody across the pool today." As soon as that sentence hit my ears, I could feel the tears burning in the back of my eyes. I was put in a place of shock and froze. The group started to move toward the front pool when suddenly the lady turned around, locked eyes with me once again, and called me the B word before walking away and continuing to talk bad about me to her husband and friends. That was what had done it for me. The tears were in my eyes and the rock was in the back of my throat. I didn't know what to do. A lady who was at least double my age with a daughter only 6 years younger than me just looked me dead in the eyes and called me that for what? Doing my job because her friend couldn't follow the rules? I was rotated very shortly after that, and when I walked into the guard room, I didn't say a word, which is very unusual for me, as I am always talking at work whether I'm in a good mood or a bad mood. So my fellow guards realized pretty quickly something was off. After I had calmed myself down, as I was very close to breaking down, I calmly told my fellow guards and 2 aquatic coordinators, Noelle Dennison and Olivia Zoutman, what had happened. Noelle and Olivia wasted no time and had me go point out the lady so they could talk to her and hopefully have her calmly leave the facility. I stayed back in the guard room as I was still shaken up, but multiple guards had told me that the hopeful, calm conversation was escalating pretty fast. I did not find out until later that the lady had almost punched Noelle and the cops had been called, all because I was doing my job and enforcing the rules. As a teenage girl, sadly getting harassed is a common thing. It has become normalized. I know this, but I didn't think it would apply to when I was at work in my chair doing my job. I have had multiple guys from the ages of 13 to 18 come up to me either in the water or on land, asking me for my SNAP, my phone number, what time I get off work, etc. It doesn't matter how many times I ignore them, they will continue to ask until they get a response which is always no. Which then almost 9 times out of 10 makes the guy or the groups of guys get an attitude. I know for a fact I'm not the only female guard who has experienced this because almost every single one has. Some of you might wonder why these rules were put into place. This is why. You might think your child is an angel, but you don't see them once you drop them off. I might be old enough to be a babysitter, but my job is not to be a babysitter, it is to be a lifeguard. So let me ask you how you would feel if your daughter was getting threatened, cussed at, or harassed the way that we do at the age of 18 for simply doing our job. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't think I need to say anything else. As they mentioned, these are just a few instances of what they're dealing with. These rules, of course, there's always going to be challenges at the pool. There's always going to be dealing with being teenagers and misbehaving. This is escalated past normal misbehavior at the pool. This is a safety concern. If we do nothing, it will get worse. This is why these rules are in place. We had to answer to the circumstances that are in front of us. Our staff, we have a job to keep our staff safe, and this is a step that we're taking in order to do so. Happy to answer any questions.
I have one. I'm sorry. You want to go ahead?
Sure. What's the procedure for terminating a membership or restricting a person from the pool after an incident like these occur?
So, and that has happened multiple times throughout the season. If there is a circumstance with a pool member, we identify, we speak with their parents, and we suspend their membership. With, of course, youth, it's not an indefinite suspension. Again, it's a consequence for misbehavior. We want to give them another opportunity for the following year. But a week suspension, 2-week suspension, that's not enough of a consequence. So typically it's a suspension for the remainder of the year with an opportunity to have their membership reinstated the following.
And for an adult, what does that look like?
Depending on the severity of the circumstance, there's potential for indefinite suspension. Again, it's just based off of each circumstance.
Sorry, I'm a little bit overwhelmed with all this.
Oh, God, yes.
So, for the sake of clarity, Mayor or Director Farrell, can you add to this that part of the rules is that the pools are going to be staffed with police full-time or some of the time, or what?
So at this point, there will be a school resource officer between the hours of 4:30 to 6 p.m. From 6 p.m. until we close at 8:30 p.m., there will be another officer. The officer will at least be parked in the facility. They will be able to monitor on foot throughout the actual internal fences of the pool. But the staff know that they have the support of the police on site.
I will say where the SROs have adjusted their schedules to cover the 4 to 6 shift, and then we'll be picking up overtime hours. And all of our overtime shifts this week have been filled for the pool coverage for an extra couple of hours that they'll be coming in early, I believe, right?
And what is the date of the pools? I'm sorry, you probably said this, but what's the summer schedule? When's the last date of the summer? And then I think we go to weekends only or something?
So Gahanna Swimming Pool, it closes on August 9th. 10th? 10th. August 10th is the last day for Gahanna Swimming Pool. Hunter's Ridge will remain open on the weekends only. The splash pad will, of course, be open but not staffed, based off of how that we'll, of course, manage that situation, but that will remain open through potentially October, weather permitting.
Okay. I'm sorry. Nancy?
Is this a problem is this a problem at both pools?
So we have had circumstances at Hunter's Ridge Pool as well. I will say that the incident reports, and when I say incident reports, there's behavior reports and there's, of course, accident reports. I'm speaking of the behavioral reports. The behavioral reports are more, there's a larger volume at the Gahanna Swimming Pool that has a couple different reasons, because obviously there's more space, so the attendance there is larger. But it's not only to the Gahanna Swimming Pool. And again, this is something that we'll have the opportunity to evaluate in our off-season. At the current status, your membership is to both pools, the Gahanna Swimming Pool as well as the Hunter's Ridge. And it's something that we'll have the opportunity to evaluate if that makes sense still moving forward.
Thank you.
Was this mostly people that live in Gahanna, or was it from outside of Gahanna?
It's a mixture. It is a mixture of both. We have resident members who we've had suspensions of, and then also non-residents. So it's a mixture of both.
Director Farrell, I don't know if you wanted to speak to also these are with daily passes, and the reason why that has been changed, because a lot of times people will come in and buy a day pass. We don't register them. We don't know who they are. We can't track them. And a lot of times when we've had these incidents and the staff has questioned these individuals, they give fake names, fake contact phone number. It's very hard to track.
We do require that they fill out information on their entry, but as Mayor Jadwin say, a lot of times that information is either false with the wrong names, wrong phone number. So then when we need to contact the individual's parents, we're not given a proper number. So it's just another level of security that we don't have the ability to make sure we know who is in the pool at what time and their guardian's information.
I'd like to say something else. We made the decision some years ago to keep the pools open, and it was a difficult decision because many of the pools were closing completely, and we ended up being one of the only pools that stayed open. And it was wonderful because our community loves the pool, and to have this kind of thing happening. But this is, I'd like to say, is something that's happening throughout the United States. I think this is so sad, and it's so sad to see people go, you made me cry. Just now I had to get a Kleenex. This is so sad. And it's unfortunate that we have to, I guess we need to say, let's look at our neighbors. Let's look at our friends. Let's look at our parents and say, you can't be doing this stuff anymore. it's just unfortunate to all those people that want to be swimmers and want to have a job and want to do that. I'm
And that's-
flabbergasted at this. This was amazing.
And that right there is why these rules are in place. If we do nothing, we're going to lose the participation, as I said, as the individuals who are using the pools as intended. We're going to lose our staff members. We're going to lose the community pool. It's not going to be a community pool anymore if we do not make these changes. And that's why the drastic changes with 3 weeks left of the season, it was not something that we just kind of, we spent a lot of time on it. We discussed with our staff members. We looked at every angle. We were aware that there was going to be some negative social media, but I 100%,
Doesn't matter.
no questions asked, it was the right decision.
Well, it was not only the Parks and Recreation staff, it was Stephanie, you and I, your team, consultation with Chief Spence and the police department as to what our options were and what the best way was to address this. This was a cumulative decision that was made. And I think a lot of times, it's always, I hope that people in this community understand that when a decision is made, it's not made quickly. Sometimes we have to act quickly, but decisions are always thoughtful and informed, and we consider every possible solution. Do we always get it right? No, but we do our best. But this was one that we felt that needed to be implemented in order to immediately address the concerns that we were seeing.
And I want to thank you for doing that, because if it's left to go further, it's just going to be worse and worse and worse. And I want to thank you for still staying with us. And thank you for doing your job. You should be proud of yourself.
Director Bell, thank you very much. Staff, thank you very much, and also for your courage to come up here and publicly declare what some of the issues are. I understand very much the command and control philosophy of the police, and I understand the idea behind actually quickly grabbing a situation and having public safety. That is definitely paramount. But I look forward to, as we go further, having a community-wide discussion about this and asking our neighbors, and I know some people might laugh about this, but we do have to get back to the virtues of respect. And we need to know exactly what that actually means, and holding each other as community members accountable for that. So, but I look forward to having a really open, very intense dialogue with our community about that. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. We're still at hearing of visitors. We do have one speaker slip, and incidentally, if you did come in and you wanted to speak, please make sure that you grab one of our speaker slips and see our clerk. I only have one right now. It's Mr. Jimmy Craig. Mr. Craig, our rules are state your name and address for the record, and you will have 30 minutes.
Name is Jimmy Craig. Address is 756 Johnsel Court. That is in the Claremont Heights District. Savern Place, which is just east of the old elementary school. Johnsel Court being just south or just west of St. Matthews. I've been a lifelong resident of Gahanna. Went to the St. Matthews Festival religiously every year. In fact, our family home backed up to the old baseball field at St. Matthews before it was demolished. Great memories there. Moved over to Johnsel Court back in 2005. Things were going well with the festival up until about 2018, 2019. We started to see a steady decline in behavior, young adults, juveniles. 2019 started with numerous fights, trash in people's yards, people parking in other people's driveways, blocking fire hydrants. There's not one piece of fire apparatus that could get down Johnsel Court if there was a fire. Like I said, trash in the yard, property damage, breaking fences, throwing fireworks at animals. and it's escalated every year. 2020, we were, forced to not have a festival due to the COVID pandemic. Came back in 2021, and it really got bad. I have a drug detection and gun detection dog in my yard, actually 2 canines in my yard, valued at about $80,000 a piece. Juveniles come down between the houses, and they like to throw fireworks across into my fence and startle those animals. This year, I had to have one of the animals sedated. He was so worked up and wanting to get at the perpetrators. He wanted to bite. This year, it really stuck me. And if you notice the scar on my nose, that happened from an altercation with some juveniles in our neighborhood. I'm probably one of maybe 8 of the residents on Johnsel Court that is below the age of 70. Everyone else is elderly. And when I say elderly, I mean 70 and above. We have one lady who's a widow. She's about 84, 85 years old. A group of 6 backed into her driveway, got out of their car, sitting on the hood, smoking marijuana, being loud, boisterous. She opened her front door, asked them to get out of her driveway. I will paraphrase what she said, not using colorful language. She was told to get her ass back in the house before she got effed up. Now, this is an 85-year-old lady. I was across the street on my front porch listening to this. I am a firearm carrier. I walked across the street. I asked them to get out of the driveway. They decided to not get out of the driveway. A couple inside the car got out of the car. Now I'm faced with 4. There's 2 more still inside the car. Something was thrown, hit me in the nose. Now I'm bleeding, and I hear somebody from inside the car just fucking shooting. So at that time, I pulled my firearm, put them at gunpoint, made them leave. They ended up leaving once they figured that, it's not going to go their way. But this is just an escalation that's been happening over the last 3 to 4 years with juveniles and young adults that go to this festival. I had a conversation with the facilities manager over there today. Got absolutely zero satisfaction out of what they perceive as the problem. They take no responsibility. They hire the police department to come in and protect their property and their festival. They do what they need to do and get the bad actors out, but that filters out onto our streets, directly around St. Matthews. So when we have elderly people being threatened by young adults, and then someone coming over to assist, and then they're threatened with their life, it's going to get ugly one day. And the city of Gahanna is going to be on the news one day if this keeps escalating and nothing's done with the juvenile issues that we have in this town. That's all I have. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Okay, moving on. Thank you. Item D, consent agenda. Do I have, there are a couple items on the consent agenda that are first time appearing. This is not unusual. It's because of our committee process. I definitely wanted to read them for the record because they are appearing as such on the consent agenda. Only going to read the resolution number and the title. Resolution 16-2022, resolution adopting the 2022 Sidewalk Maintenance Program area. Resolution 00220, 2022, a resolution designated July 2022 as a Parks and Recreation Month in the City of Gahanna. Resolution 21-2022, a resolution authorizing the transfer of funds. Ordinance 0040-2022, an ordinance authorizing the supplemental appropriations and waiver, second reading. And then finally, ordinance 0039-2022, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into bargaining unit agreement for the Fraternal Order of Police, Capital City Lodge, number 9, for the period of January 1, 2022 through December 31st, 2024, waiving second reading and declaring emergency. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda as published?
So moved.
I have a first by Councilwoman Bowers. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilwoman Angelou. Any discussion? Okay, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Bowers,
Yes.
Angelou,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Schnetzer, Weaver.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Item E, motions. We have one motion, MT 0014-2022, a motion to amend the rules of procedure of the Council of the City of Gahanna, Section 6.30, hearing of visitors, establishing subsections 6.30A, in person, and 6.30B via video. Do I have a first a motion to adopt this resolution, or this motion?
So moved, Mr. President.
Thank you. First by Mr. Weaver. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Ms. Padova. Any discussion?
Mr. President.
Mr. Weaver, please.
Thank you, sir. I know this has been a long time coming, and I just want to thank all of my colleagues for all of the input over the past several months. I feel that what is before the body now fulfills the goal of not just making ourselves accessible, but getting to the root of making sure that public comment is even more accessible. Because I know we all are attentive to our emails and our cell phones, and we try to be as responsive as we can, but going back to the original intent and goal of making sure that public comment is more accessible. I think this does that. And so I also want to thank the City Attorney for his efforts, and our clerk as well, all city staff involved. And again, thanks to my colleagues. That's it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Ms. McGregor.
I appreciate all the effort that went into this, and we've discussed this for quite a while. I still am not in favor of the video. I think there is great opportunity for mischief and for, I think it's going to put people in a bad position to have to censor comments that come in by via the video. And I think that the opportunity is going to be great for this to be misused. And I hate to put anybody in the position of having to censor it. On what basis do we censor it? And I think it's just a bad idea in general. And so I will not be supporting this motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I will be voting yes on this motion. I do believe that, I think, you know, what we discussed about in that committee is actually that it's going to be an experiment. And Ms. McGregor, I definitely understand and sympathize, but I think that we can at least try and show our residents that we can do something. But as we did discuss and agree that we can turn it off and stop it if this becomes abusive.
I have to agree with Nancy. I do think this is something that's just going to be, let's see if it works. And if we know it works, then we can continue. But if we don't, we certainly should stop it if it doesn't. That's all right. Thank you.
Okay, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Weaver,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
McGregor,
No.
Renner,
Yes.
Schnetzer, Angelou,
Yes.
Bowers.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Item F, ordinances for introduction and first reading. I'll just read the ordinance numbers and the title. There is no executive action or no voting action on these. Ordinance 34-2022, an ordinance to amend the Gahanna Code Chapter 903 regarding sidewalk construction. Ordinance 35-2022, an ordinance to amend Gahanna Code Chapter 907 regarding driveways and curb cuts. Ordinance 36-2022, an ordinance to amend Gahanna Code Chapter 909 regarding driveway drainage. Ordinance 37-2022, an ordinance authorizing the Department of Public Service and Engineering award and the mayor to enter into a contract with Gudenkopf, did I say that? Corporation, Inc. for Big Walnut Creek Fiber Loop ST 1095. Finally, Ordinance 38-2022, an ordinance to amend the City of Gahanna building and zoning fee schedule. Item G, ordinances for introduction, waiver, and emergency adoption. We have one. Ordinance 33-2022, an ordinance to accept the final plat for the Crescent at Central Park, Section 2, consisting of 4 lots and reserves B and C located on Buckles Court North, parcel ID number 25-013773, Curtin Zoning Select Commercial Plan District, SCPD, Lara Canini, applicant, waiving second reading and declare an emergency. Do I have a motion to approve the said ordinance?
So moved.
Have a first by Ms. Angelou,
Second.
second by Ms. Padova. Any discussion?
I think this is an exciting night to have this come forward. And I can't thank Mr. Canini enough for doing such great stuff. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Ms. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I had asked a question about the stormwater waiver and sort of the legislative process on that. I was hoping to get some insight into whether or not, the way I read the code section, it seemed that there was a process by which the waiver and application, or the application and waiver for the stormwater discharge.
Yes, thank you. So
I'd like an, yeah, thank you.
I'm going to defer to Michael because he was actually part of this, and so he can give you a better answer than I.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would apologize because I think we weren't sure who was getting back to you. So after we got your email, I told you we would look into that. I did have a conversation with Mr. Malarski as well as Director Blackford and city engineer, or interim city engineer Ridge. But I think perhaps Director Blackford can best speak to this.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'll do my best here. So, as you correctly stated, there is a section in the stormwater management policy which talks about city engineer would issue a waiver application. There isn't, when we went through this as a group with Mr. Canini, there was a lot of discussion back and forth about the applicability of this code and the letter that is part of the record. And there isn't an already created application process. So rather than create paperwork to already encompass the review that had been ongoing with the applicant and the city engineer, it was just that review and the appropriateness of the waiver was done in conjunction with the final plat. So the city engineer was in agreement with the waiver. There isn't an already separate application for that. Since the city engineer reviewed that with the final plat, it was determined that a separate application is not necessary.
Okay. Thank you. And that's 11.
119305, I think.
Okay. I lost my email. Can you give me just a second to see if I can? Oh, there it is. Okay. 119305. Okay, so just so we are all crystal clear and the record is crystal clear, let me just make sure. So there, I do see a kind of an email application from Mr. Canini in the documents, the attachments here. And I also understand then that the engineer pursuant to 119305 is recommending the waiver. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
And then the waiver, was it submitted to Planning Commission?
It was discussed. It was part of the application package that was discussed with Planning Commission, then forwarded to City Council.
And do you feel confident that you, that Planning Commission has also kind of approved this waiver?
Yes, that's an excellent question, and part of the staff presentation called out that code section and that requirement specifically. So it was discussed, I would say probably a little bit more than any other in particular element, just because it was very unusual. So that was discussed with Planning Commission, yes.
Okay, all right, perfect. That just helps clean that up for me. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Any further discussion on this proposed ordinance? As I stated in the committee of the whole, for the record, that I will definitely be supporting this, and I thank Mr. Canini for his work in the Crescent area. Okay, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Angelou,
Yes.
Padova,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Schnetzer is absent, Weaver,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
McGregor.
Yes.
Ordinance passes. Thank you. Item H, correspondence and actions. Mr. Clerk, do you have anything?
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. What about my colleagues on council? Anything? Okay. Item I, representatives, Community Improvement Corporation. Mr. Weaver and I will be attending CIC meeting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I believe it'll be in the committee rooms next door, right?
Correct.
Thank you. Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, Ms. Angelou?
I have nothing this evening because we're not meeting this month.
Summertime. Thank you. I'm sorry. Convention and Visitors Bureau, Ms. Padova?
Thank you. Just a reminder, there will be a volunteer appreciation picnic this Wednesday, July 20th, from 5 to 7 in the backyard of the Visit Gahanna, Ohio Herb Center. All of the Creekside Blues and Jazz Festival volunteers are welcome. And another reminder that Midweek at the Creek is continuing every Wednesday through August 10th with live musical entertainment on the plaza at Creekside. And in the last month, Gahanna has hosted 4 motor coach groups, 2 of which visited the Ohio Herb Center. And that is all I have.
Very cool. School Board, Ms. Bowers.
I'd just like to thank School Board President Burl Pickle-Antonio and school board members for attending tonight and introducing us to Dr. Deagle. It was a pleasure to be a part of the process and to really see how you engaged the community and your consultant in a really effective and efficient way. So congratulations on your selection, and thank you again for being here tonight, along with Assistant Superintendent Jill Elliott, because we don't want to forget her. Thank you.
Thank you. Official reports, Madam Mayor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. Also, thank you to members of the school board for bringing Dr. Deagle here this evening and for introducing her to us. I commend you on your choice. I just think she's a bright star. I look forward to working with her. Her enthusiasm already is just really, it's all encapsulating. She just kind of wraps you in that, and very much look forward to our work together. I also think that it was, thank you for staying. I think that it was wonderful that you were here tonight to hear the discussion. I want to thank you, Mr. President, for allowing the addition of this discussion item on the pools. I was not expecting everything that I heard tonight. I knew of it, but to hear it directly from the mouths of babes, so to speak, really puts it into perspective even more so. But to have our school board members and our new superintendent sitting here, listening to the conversation, we do need to have dialogue in our community. How do we address this? How do we communicate with our families? How do we communicate with our students? And how do we address this behavior to become truly a community again of one of respect and kindness and grace? And it really gives you an appreciation for what teachers go through. every day in the classroom. Now, whether this is post-COVID and this is after effects of that, that's one of our SROs believes it's that this behavior that we're seeing is post-COVID. With all of these kids who were locked up, for so to speak, sitting behind a screen for a year and a half, and not really and forgetting how to communicate with one another and what that looks like. But we have a problem, and it's not just Gahanna, it's not just Central Ohio, but we can come together as a community. I truly believe that that's one of the best things Gahanna does. So I appreciate your comments earlier, and do look forward to the dialogue and our work together with our school district, because I think it's going to take all of us to help with this issue. I would like to thank Councilwoman Bowers at the outset for recognizing, taking a few minutes to remember Marty White. Our Parks and Rec team has had a tough week. Mr. White was a 17-year employee of the city of Gahanna. He was very proud of his work. He was even more proud of his family and of his community. He loved parks. He loved serving the parks. And every person who takes a walk on a trail or visits one of our parks can see the work of Marty and his contributions. So I appreciate that recognition. And I'll close it out with a park survey. So our comprehensive parks master plan is underway. There is a survey available online. I believe it'll be up for, I believe, at least 30 to 45 days. You can find that at gahanna.gov. We need our community's input. This is, we ask for public input when we need to hear their voice to help us shape that future. So please, we encourage everybody to take that survey. If you received a hard copy, fill that out and you send that back in. And then finally, speaking of public input, Wednesday, as council knows, we will be hosting a town hall to discuss the work that we've been doing on facilities, certainly over the last 2.5 years, but really work that precedes certainly my taking office. But for the last 2.5 years, obviously, we've been working with council and our administrative team to really evaluate the condition of our facilities, what next steps might look like for us. So that town hall will be here in council chambers at 6 p.m. Wednesday, July 20th, for those who are watching at home. We'll also be live streaming that, and then of course it'll be posted online after that if you're not able to attend or watch on Wednesday. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. City Attorney.
Thank you, President Renner. I'm actually going to give a little report today. Last week, Michael Blackford was asked a question, and he answered that question accurately, but the question and the answer, I believe, was a little misleading due to the legal distinction. That being, he was asked whether or not he felt that owner-occupied individual was being treated differently than a landlord. You're allowed to do that. They are a business, and we are allowed to regulate businesses and for the health and safety of the tenants. And so while it is true that there is some distinctions between how an owner-occupied is treated and a landlord is treated, it is still done within the law. So you have to compare landlords to landlords. Are we treating them all the same? Owner-occupied to owner-occupied, are they being treated all the same? So I just wanted to make sure that that distinction was made because of the way it kind of came out. It didn't sit right with me when I was thinking about it. So, and that's all.
Mr. Merlarski, thank you very much. I'm the one that asked that question, and I really was looking for something, and you really have nailed it. So thank you. Thank you. All right, council comment. Ms. Angelou.
Well, it's really interesting because tonight was a kind of an interesting night. We had some possibly wonderful things happening, and then we had some really crummy stuff happening. And I got to tell you, I thank our police. I am just absolutely, I can't even come up with the right word for what's happening. And I honestly believe it is not just in our community. It is all over. And I think that our community is one that tends to want to be with their neighbor, wants to be with people, wants to welcome people. And it's just devastating to hear what has happened when we work so hard to be able to have these pools for our community. I can't say enough for our people here, for the people that were trying to work on that, and for the other people that were watching and didn't potentially help. So I thank you, Chief, for putting some officers there. Hopefully that will settle things down. Hopefully we can have The pool's open again next year. We have that beautiful new pad, and, you know, it would be a shame to after we've gotten this all working so well. So I guess maybe we need to say a few prayers that this attitude that's going through all of our country stops, and we go back to the right things about what we do here. And I want to thank all the people here on this group here, our council, and our thank you to the people that came there. I thought we gave probably that new superintendent, she was wondering why she maybe was going to be here. So I wanted to kind of run after her and say, really, this is not what usually happens. But, you know, and I've been a teacher. My whole life I was a teacher, so I know what it's like to have that. And I just think we have to make sure that this doesn't, we have to talk about it, and we have to make sure that other people talk about it. And you know, if you don't want to live here, go someplace else. Lots of people want to live here, and they can't find a house because they're, you know, so, you know, it's just so, it's just one of those nights where you kind of go, I wanted to go and watch baseball. I mean, you know, and here we have, and now you have this, and I want to just discuss it more, because it should never happen in our community. We're better than that. We are the great city of Gahanna. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McGregor.
I just want to thank the young women that came forward and spoke. I have a 16 and 17-year-old lifeguard grandchildren, and they guard at a smaller pool, but I really feel for the girls, and I think that it was very brave of especially the 15-year-old to come forward and to be able to speak to what she has endured in a fun job. I was a lifeguard when I was in high school, and it was always like, you know, that was a fun job to do for the summer and teach swimming lessons and work at the pool. And I just am very saddened that it is you've had to come up with these rules, but I appreciate that we're trying to keep everybody safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to thank all of our guests for being here. I want to also extend or add my voice to the chorus welcoming Dr. Deagle to Gahanna and to the GJPS school system, and congratulate the board on that decision as well. Wish her much success. I want to thank our dedicated Parks and Recreation staff. It sort of went unnoticed this evening, but on our consent agenda, we passed a resolution designating July 2022 as Parks and Rec Month in the city of Gahanna. So in a way, it sort of feels like, wow, what a way to celebrate. But I want to thank our parks staff. I especially want to thank the three young individuals who spoke this evening before us, and I'm sorry for what they have to endure on a day-to-day basis. Like Ms. McGregor, like the mayor, I was a lifeguard for many years. It is a rite of passage, and it can be the best job that you could possibly have. And so I am sorry to hear that what they're going through. As has been said, it's not limited to our community, but I know that with such a community issue, it does require a community solution, and I look forward to that dialogue here. Lastly, I want to extend my condolences to Mr. White's friends, family, and his colleagues. And I think that is it for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Padova.
Thank you. Going forth, you're echoing a lot of the things that everyone has already said, but thank you to all the school board members for coming this evening and introducing us to our new superintendent, and also to Director Farrell and your team, and especially the young ladies that were speaking to us this evening. It breaks my heart that any of them have had to go through any of the things that they described to us this evening. So thank you for coming here tonight and letting people know what's actually happening at the pools for people who are just seeing things on social media and not actually experiencing it. As Mr. Weaver said, it is Parks and Rec Month. And so I have been trying to go to the parks, and I was trying to go to, or am still trying to go to all of them this summer. I think we've gone to about 10 of them so far. And my mother-in-law was with me the other day, and my 9-year-old niece, and as we were leaving one of them, she said, well, if this park is any indication of how the parks are, then you guys are doing a fabulous job. So very good job. You guys are doing excellent. And on that note, I do invite everybody to come out on Saturday to join me and Councilman Weaver for a walk in the park to celebrate Parks and Rec Month. It is at Gahanna Woods this Saturday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. We'll do just a short little half-mile walk through the woods there, and then we'll stick around and chat. So hope to see some people there and hear what everybody is doing this summer and thoughts on any improvements that we can make here in the city.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. I want to thank the staff, particularly Director Farrell and Chief Spence, for your hard work in going into, and Mayor Jadwin for your hard work in making some difficult decisions over the last couple weeks. I knew that things were escalating, but I didn't know how bad they had gotten, and I know I sound like everybody else has said it, but the stories being relayed from these staff members really puts it in perspective. And while I have concerns that we just have created, just like Mr. Craig said tonight, that once we displace them from one area, we are going to create a problem in a different area. We certainly can't have our staff being treated that way and putting our youth employees at risk. So thank you for giving us a full picture tonight. Thank you to Mr. Schultz and to Mr. Van Meter for your work on building out the video comment tool. Knowing that it was kind of already close to being ready, functional, and ready to launch was an important piece. So I'm glad to hear about that, and I think that'll be a good tool for us to use and evaluate it. And I understand my colleagues' concerns as well, but evaluate it going forward. I did want to mention two important things. This past weekend, I believe, yes, on Saturday, the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline Hotline launched. For people who are experiencing mental health or addiction crises, they can dial 988 and be connected with crisis specialists, non-law enforcement crisis specialists that can connect them to resources. So hopefully people have heard about the 988 number, and that will be a useful tool as we continue to experience fallout from COVID and from, just I think the escalation of a lot of factors, right? We're seeing increase in all kinds of crisis circumstances. On that point, I wanted to also thank Chief Spence for joining me on July 6th at the Columbus Metropolitan Club luncheon. There was a presentation on the alternative response pilot program that Columbus has been working on. And Council President Hardin, a member of the fire department, Columbus Fire Division, and a couple other community members were on the panel, and they talked about how important this alternative response has been. Some of the data that they've seen in their pilot program is that they've seen a 62% decrease in the number of calls requiring a law enforcement response because they've been able to link the caller, they're able to triage the call in a different way and then link the caller with the right response is what they're calling it. And so in a place like Columbus where they have perhaps more resources and more personnel, that that can maybe be built out differently. But what I see is, what I was able to compare it to was kind of what we're already doing in Gahanna, which is a lot of this comprehensive and very holistic intervention. Our law enforcement, especially in a community the size of ours, is our first line of defense, both in crisis response, in law enforcement, and so having 40-hour CIT trained officers. I think every one of our officers is or is on track to be 40-hour crisis intervention trained. And knowing that we've got an integrated call center, dispatch, communication center, where we have people who really are listening, and the treatment that our callers are getting in our dispatch center. So I was glad to hear about this. I was glad to hear about some potential opportunities for what we could be doing differently or better, but also glad to hear about, and being really proud of our department and how our department looks at community policing and community holistic safety. So thank you.
Thank you. It's actually, I was just sitting here thinking that's a really good discussion, especially with all the other community things that we're hearing. So this is probably an unusual, as it already said, it was a tough meeting, but one of the things that we keep it real, and that's important because in order to have a good community discussion, at least the start, we need to understand the reasons and understand what's happening. I want to thank the mayor and the chief for taking my calls late Friday when I got home and understood what was going on in my community, and it was a little bit of a shock, but thank you both for helping me understand. And thank you, as you've already heard multiple times, and I've already stated for the record that our parks staff and Director Farrell, thank you. I know you spoke before us last week and sort of were hinting at some of the things, but now hearing it directly, I think that was very educational for all of us, and we need to be aware, so thank you. I don't think there's anything else further to say. I can't say it any better than my colleagues, so that ends my council comment. We do have one additional item, the executive session. I need a motion to go into executive session for the following reason. To go into executive session under authority of Section 5.40A of the Council Rules of Procedure to consider the appointment of a public employee or official. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a first by Mr. Weaver. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Padova. Any discussion? Okay, Jeremy, please call the roll.
Weaver?
Yes.
Padova?
Yes.
Renner?
Yes.
Schnetzer is absent. Angelou?
Yes.
Bowers?
Yes.
McGregor?
Yes.
Thank you. We have no legislative action coming after this, but thank you so much for everybody attending.